Check, 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 check. Hello, 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 hello. Here we are. Thursday, May 13th, 2021. Live stream learning ukulele with Curt. Curt Shower here. And get rid of that high tech here, tape here. Let's see if we can get this down here out of the way. See if you can still hear me. Let me know any chats, all that kinds of stuff. I'm doing something different today. Streaming to my Funky Frets Facebook, Funky Frets YouTube, and my YouTube, the original my YouTube. We'll see if that sort of works today. Something new. No. Looks like Facebook's doing it. I don't see anything yet. On YouTube. Junk here. All right, we'll see what happens. Let me know. Let me know. I'm looking around here, see what's going on. Says it's online and everything, so hopefully you can find me on the my YouTube. I'm looking at it, but I don't see it yet. Just check it out. I think that's the way to do it. Huh. Weird. I don't see it yet, but let's see what happens here. Ba, 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 ba. Live here. Today we're going to go over scales. All about scales. I can show it up on the YouTube. Weird. Come on. Ba 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 ba. Huh. Technology. Crazy, 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 crazy. No idea what's going on now. Just find out. Let me tell. Let me do this. Hold on. Ready? Dive it over here. Enjoy the music for a second. Be right back. it out. All right, scales, 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 scales. We can take it all. We should base all of our scales. And what is a scale? What is a scale? Let's go and find out what a scale is. You get to see the magic behind the scenes here. So, a good place to get information on a lot of this is go right to learningukulele.com. And hit the glossary. And let's see what I wrote up for a scale. It's a sequence of musical notes in ascending, up, or descending order. Most commonly, the notes of a scale will belong to a single key or tonality. It is used to conveniently represent part or all of a musical work, including the melody or the harmony. So, melodies, improvisations, single notes come out of scales, and chords are built from scale degrees, then called chord tones. All right. So you can even dive in. A key, that's a key signature. Keys are a summary of the sharps and flats. Usually, and key signatures are only apply to major and their natural relative minor keys. Another one was tonality. That's just the arrangement of the pitches and chords, the scales, and the musical hierarchy of a perceived relationship, stabilities, attractions, and directionality. That's what gives music its sort of flow, feeling of moving here, moving there. And there is a central tone which all the other tones relate to and establish this tonality or identity. Because as we know, when we dive into these scales, we'll see that some of the names, some of the collection of notes can have multiple names. All right. So, again, back to learningukulele.com. My digital pack rat collecting of information. And we can go to the series, type in the right name, 6 essential scales. These are the scales we're going to be going over. 6 essential scales. All right, take a look at this for a second, and I will be right back here to take care of something. back in business. Uh, so as usual, just let me know how the sound is, stuff like that. Check it out. So here we can see 6 essential scales, what they are. Now the order of learning these will be totally dependent on what your goals are and your styles. Let me check one thing out. Okay. All right, there you go. Trying to monitor everything as we do it. So the essential scales are, and these are kind of alternate names. There's traditional names, and there is these scale, these modal names sometimes. So the major scale, ultimately we'll find out that's what we can base a lot of these scales on, because ultimately there ends up being too many possibilities, too many scales, collection of notes, too many chords. Shapes can get overwhelming, so ultimately you learn the notes and you just sort of add a note here, remove a note here, change a note here or two, and you get other scales. So the scales are in no particular order, but major scale is sort of our overriding scale we can go back to and derive a lot of information from. So we have our major scale, or sometimes called the Ionian scale mode or Ionian mode. The natural minor scale, that's also called the Aeolian scale. It's one of the minor scales. Pentatonic or major pentatonic. Pent meaning 5, tonic just meaning a main note. So this is a 5-note scale. A 7-note scale using all 7 letters of the musical alphabet would be called a full diatonic scale using all 7 letters. The blues or minor pentatonic scale. Some people will make a distinction between the minor pentatonic and the blues scale, whereas the blues scale will have an added chromatic passing tone, but there's really no need in keeping them separate because they're just so close. There's no need in learning 2 different scales. Mixolydian, often called a dominant scale, and then Dorian is a minor type scale. So there's your 6 essential scales: major, natural minor, pentatonic, blues, Mixolydian, Dorian. In a lot of cases, if somebody came in as a student and said they wanted to really play like rock, contemporary music, classic rock, we would start with the blues scale. A lot of our Western music is blues, real heavy blues influence and blues based. So that's a very easy scale to start with, a 5-note blues scale. If you came in and said you were going to be a country guitar player, I'd start with the pentatonic. You wanted to be in a Grateful Dead band, Mixolydian. So different scales really find their way into different scales, styles, right? So, but the major scale, this is actually a good page to jump to, I'm going to play them. I'm going to first start with the major scale. That's a sound you want to get into your ear. Now, what these full diatonic 7-note scales will do is they'll use all 7 letters of the musical alphabet in order. You can't skip or repeat a note. Now, you'll see it does repeat the octave C here, but our ear really just demands that we play that note because our ear sort of demands it. In fact, the 7th note of that major scale, they actually call it the leading tone. So it's actually just leading you to the start of the next octave. So technically, the scale is C, D, E, F, G, A, B, but orally, hearing it, our ear wants to, it demands resolution. So here is let me check something first. Make sure this plays. Yep, it's on. This is the major scale. And you can actually think of Sound of Music, the do, re, mi, fa, sol. No voice today. No voice most days. You can actually sort of hear some funkiness in there. So that's fine there. C, D, E. Now listen to this next note, the fourth note. The first note, C to D, if we pulled up our piano and we see between C and D there's a note, so that we would actually call the distance from C to D a whole step. If you played this on along one string on your ukulele or fretted stringed instrument, there would be a fret between C and D on the same string. Between D and E, there is a fret or a key, a note, and that's called a whole step. So C to D is a whole step, or 2 half steps. From one key to the next, like if you looked at that piano on the screen, from C to C sharp or D flat is called a half step. C to D is a whole step. So the E to F is a half step, and this is where we'll get, we'll actually can sort of hear that, because just playing C, D, D, E, our ear is registering the sound, actually the relationship between each one, that spacing. Hear that? That fourth note, F in this case. Right? It sounded a little flat almost because our ear was expecting, our ear was actually expecting the next note, right? Now we played the major scale there, so when I went that next whole step, now our ear is totally confused, like which ones is it going to be? So here. So we can actually sort of maybe hear those half steps. So whole, half, half, right? Because we're going to really base a lot off of this one scale. Now, to get this under your fingers, that's hearing it. If you walked over to the piano and played C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, do, you can actually do the solfeggi if you wanted. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do, or ti, do. All right. On the ukulele, we have that open string pattern. Because it's one thing getting it under your ear. Yeah, it is on the YouTube now. YouTube's hard to find stuff, so I can't find it on. So I have it on Facebook. Hello, Robin. So you want to get the sound under your fingers, because that's where all the work is. It's in our ear. We know the sound. We've heard it our whole life, but our fingers, they haven't been paying attention. Until you put a musical instrument in her hand. Then we're expecting our fingers to be another sending device for our music that's in our ear and brain, right? So, do, re, mi, fa, 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 fa. And count the notes too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? Because that's our reference numbers that we'll use to derive the other scales. So again, one more time, the major scale. All right, now a lot of the stuff that we did in the previous sort of live streams were taking this scale up and down the neck, because we can play them in any order we want. If there's a particular chord playing, we might want to adjust the notes that are in that chord, so knowing the notes of the neck and where they are. Like G. So those notes come right out of that major scale, right? And there will be a collection of chords, right? So remember, scale is just a collection of notes, right? Now, so our major scale is going to be the default numbers that we use when we want to identify the other scales, right? And there is that pattern up top. Let me jump back to the other screen. All right. We can see the major scale. Now there is one decision we have to make because in this 4-fret span, we ideally try to play all of our scales nicely when we learn them in a 4-fret span, because that's pretty nice. Then we actually don't have to really look. But now we have a choice. We can play E on string 3 or string 2. Right, so you make a musical decision ultimately, but you explore 2 ways. So that means 2 ways to play it. And then we had the thing of, what if we weren't on finger 2 in this case? What about finger 1? Then we have all those fingering issues that happens on the instrument. But here we're exploring the sounds and how to remember one scale from another. So if we do number them, that is one of the keys: C, D, E, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, F. 3 and 4 is that natural half step. G, a two half steps, a whole step. A, whole step. B, whole step, 2 half steps. C, B, C. This is where you can see, no pun intended, that you can't stop on the B when you're learning it. It's demanding that we start it, and that's actually the start of the next one. Whoa, wrong notes there at the end, but that's all right. All right, now the next scale in order of learning, because we can derive scales from here. In fact, let's stick with the C major scale for a second. We'll play it again. There we go, yeah, make sure I'm on the right screen. Nice, you get that sound under your ear. Walk toward, when you run by a piano, sort of play it. If you want to do it on the piano, you can use just any fingers, but use fingers, thumb, index, middle, and then shift to the F note to your thumb, and you can finish it with one move. Now I'm going to play the Mixolydian scale, because we're looking at the numbers. I see there's only one note difference between the major or Ionian scale and the Mixolydian. Now let's actually play the sound of it. So that sounded like the major scale so far, didn't it? I'm going to stop it before it goes any further. That sounded just like it, didn't it? It sounded all the way up, right? C, D, E, F, G, A. Whoa, there. It sounds like it's flat, doesn't it? Nice, right? So there you go. So the 7th note, we want to flat it for a B flat. Oh, that was wrong, sorry. I skipped the A. All right? So that actually becomes an easy way to remember, especially on ukulele, where there's fewer shapes for scales than there is on, like, say, the guitar, where you would have 7 one-octave places to play a major scale or any 7-note, 5-note scale. On the ukulele, we have fewer. If you have a low G, I have 2 places I can play the major scale. Oh, wait a second, I'll do it here. Oh, yeah. Oh, wait a second. Funny, it's way up here. That's funny, you get used to it, so comfortable with it. Like, you can sort of run these scales and not really think of them. But there's only 2 places we can play a 4-finger default fingering where we don't have to slide or stretch or move and get a note outside of our 4-fret span. So it becomes more of the notes. And navigating the different pathways. All right, but that has the Mixolydian has that sound. All right. Then the pentatonic scale, that has all natural numbers, all natural notes, the C pentatonic or major pentatonic. You notice it's a 5-note scale. I'm just going to play it first. Sounds like it skipped something, didn't it? Skipped a note, right? So it actually is the major scale without, if we look at the numbers, without a 4th note, with no F, or without the B. So it actually took out the natural half steps in the scale, which when it comes to soloing and using this scale over chords, it actually sets you up for initial success more because it doesn't have those notes that inherently will clash. Major scale again. You sort of hear a bit of dissonance from that E lingering over the F. Like if I could play the E and F together, you would get this sound. So you actually sort of get that in our ear. We still have the last note, last sound registered in our ear when we hear the next one. And there's a comparison going on. So you hear a dissonance. Right? So that half step's not in there. Right? Now, I always tell this story. When I learned the blues scale, most players will know the blues scale, a lot of them, and they'll know maybe the major pentatonic. And they'll use them a lot, especially in classic rock, blues scenarios. And on the guitar, where you do have these 7 different 1-octave positions, the blues scale, like on, say, string 6 of the guitar, you would start with finger 1 and then have a nice 4-fret span sound like here. That's the equivalent on my U. So if you start with finger 1 and you're thinking blues, you have a somewhat successful chance of your fingers following what they've done before because it's starting on finger 1. Then when you hit the pentatonic, its basic default fingerings on the guitar would start with finger 2, most of them. So then you do have a somewhat good success of playing the first 4 notes anyway correctly because it started on a different starting finger than you did with the blues. But the blues and the pentatonic on the guitar, you can start on strings 5 and 6 using the pinky. So that's the same starting finger for both of them. And then you have a tendency that you might play the second and third notes. You might mix your scales, but by accident, not thinking about it. And I did that when I was learning it. And I would not catch it sometimes. So my guitar teacher, one day, he said to me on the pentatonic, he says, "It's my girl." The pentatonic scale is the My Girl lick from that old Temptations song. So then you got the sound in your ear. You registered that pentatonic sound. So now listen to the pentatonic scale, major pentatonic, and channel My Girl or even the Christmas song, I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus. I saw Mommy kiss Boo. Right? And you'll hear that. So either channel My Girl or I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus. Now you have to change the rhythm though. So if we change the rhythm, we get. So you make the first note just twice as long as the rest. It's actually 1.5 times longer. Right? Then that means you know the sound, and it doesn't mean you're not going to play it wrong again. It just means you'll know whether you've played the right note or not. You hit the right. Oh. You'll hear it. You'll hear it. So if you want to really listen to that sound of these, right? So that means we actually sort of covered the 3 major based scales in here, the Ionian, there we go, it's a major scale with sort of the flat 7, which gives like a bluesy, sort of minor sound almost. It's mixing major and minor together. Hit it again, major. Right, now the pentatonic, because it does not have a 7th, it can sound major or mixolydian. It can actually be used in place of a major or the mixolydian, the Ionian or mixolydian. We're doing backwards now. So those scales, the pentatonic and major, all natural notes, all numbers with no sharps or flats. The pentatonic, no fourth, no seventh. All right. So it really drives it home that the major or Ionian scale seems pretty important, right? Now the minor scale. Now here's where a lot of people make, I believe, sort of set themselves up for failure and not really being able to successfully use these other scales, is they'll think of them as modes of the major scale. So I'm just going to rattle off these names of the major or the Ionian scale. The traditional name is major. The scale modal name is Ionian. But also within this major scale, the Ionian mode is 6 other modal names. You'll hear them sometimes. Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian is one of them. All right. Aeolian, Locrian. All right. So there's all these wacky 7 different names with IAN as the last 3 letters of each of them. They're all called modes. They're all based off of these old ancient Greek province names. All right. Or Greek periods. There's a lot of history of this stuff on Wikipedia. It's just sort of like overwhelming sometimes. But you'll see a couple of the modes used here, actually 4 of them. Aeolian, IAN at the end, Mixolydian, IAN, Dorian, IAN. So Dorian is a minor kind of scale, sometimes called the minor scale. The natural minor, Aeolian. All right, so it could be any one of those different names. Now, you'll see a lot of places they'll say, well, just do the Dorian, just start on the D of the C Ionian or major scale and play D to D, and you will have D Dorian. And it'll have a different sound, but you won't really get a lot out of it because you'll always have that step back where you have to go to the major scale, think of that, and then go off. And later on, you do a lot of that deriving and thinking information back to a base foundation of information and derive off of it. But you do it later on in your sort of development where you can do it quicker and then almost in real time. So now we're going to jump into the Aeolian. There's a lesson online here where I actually use the Ionian and the Aeolian. That is 2 reference foundation scales where you can build and derive all 7 of the modes, right? And you can, and some other traditional scales, you can get a lot out of them. So here's the C Aeolian. Listen to this. Now, if those modes are in the major scale, we could actually start on the 6th of the Ionian and play A to A, and you would get that Aeolian sound. But here is the Aeolian sound starting on the common root of C. That is a good point here, is always start on the same root when you're learning these. So here's the Aeolian. You still hear those half-step sounds. They just are in different positions in the scale. Right now, I would jump up and you hit the natural minor. Right now, one more time, the sound. Oh, it is down the bottom. Good. And sometimes it's actually good to do what I'm doing here is play the sound, have something else playing the scale for you, because then you're not focused. Because immediately, as soon as you start to get your fingers to play these, the tension is split. Even whether you think it is or not, it's split to where you are thinking about consciously or subconsciously of where to play your fingers. So the natural minor, Aeolian. Right? Now, if we do the numbers, if we reference these numbers off of the... Oh, we could do this. Hold on. Oh, look at that. That's great. Nice. I just sort of viewed the image in a different tab. So we see it is all 7 letters in order, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, but the third is a flat third, the 6th is flat, and the 7th is flat. Now, if you know a bit about music, you might recognize 3 flats and look at them and say, well, geez, that is this E flat major scale, E flat major key signature. Has E flat, has B flat, E flat, A flat. Right? That is true. That is. So the C Aeolian is a mode or the natural minor scale of the E flat major key. Right? And later on you can use that information as a benefit and reuse fingerings, because guaranteed your major scale fingerings, or whatever scale you started with that was predominant, you will remember that more than anything. So it's all about reuse. Hey, I see Pete in the house. Hello, Pete. So the way to remember the Aeolian is a flat third, flat 6th, flat 7. But then all the work is getting them fingers to do it. But it is the numbers too, in order: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. C, D, E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, C. So these 2 scales, the major and the Aeolian, become your 2 reference scales. Because the major scale is where all the chords come from for the major tonality or major key songs, right? Predominantly, all the chords come from that. The natural minor scale, the C Aeolian, if it's an Aeolian mode song, all the chords come from the Aeolian mode, most of them. If it's a minor key, the minor key actually gets its chords from 3 different minor scales, whereas the major key songs, major tonality, gets its chords from 1 major scale. That probably explains why 80% or more of our songs are major, and minor is a smaller percentage. It's good because it's like 3 different scales, and there's a reason for that. And it actually gives you a reason for the names and stuff, right? So, Aeolian again. Now you can practice these. I think I had something here. Let me just check it out. I always use this iReal Pro a lot because it's like a great program. Here you go. So here's an Aeolian Nights song. Whoops, let's slow it down. But that's pretty darn loud. That's going to be pretty darn fast. I like 120. Once your fingers get comfortable and you can play rhythms and get your fingers moving at about 120, it's starting to become subconscious efforts. By sound, and I'm just playing the scale. Not even really, you can see the chords go by, I can hear them changing, but I'm not really focused on the scale tones. Now if I wanted to do that, I would spell the chords quickly in my ears: A flat, C, E flat, E flat, G, B flat, C, E flat, G. So you explore the sound, explore the scale. All right, maybe hide this. Boom, we're back to the scale. Boom, boom, boom. So you hear the sound. I was playing pretty much this collection of notes. The MIDI piano thing. All right. Now, so we went back, we visited the Ionian or major. So then we realized the Mixolydian was just flat that seventh note. C Aeolian, our natural minor scale. Turns out the C Dorian, and let's play the Aeolian first because that's going to be our reference for the Dorian. It's almost a Where's Waldo? Where's the different sounding interval? Where's those intervals different now? Right there near the end, right? Because the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 notes are the same. C Aeolian, C, D, E flat, F, G, fine. C Dorian, C, D, E flat, F, G, the same. So if you play this scale, here's the Aeolian. Here's the Dorian. It's actually the same, right? So I didn't hit the note that makes them different. So here you go. I'll go straight on through. Listen for that sixth note. So you can just say the letters. You can even say them generically. C, D, E, we know it's flat. F, G, A, it's going to be flat. Say the letters as you do it. Now listen here. Whoop, so if you listen to that sixth note, that sixth note was a little flat. What happened was the Dorian has a natural sixth. So you raise that note up a half step from the Aeolian. It has a natural sixth. Natural sixth, right? And I said I put emphasis on that natural sixth for the Dorian because Dorian, and if I look at the two flat notes, I know that is the same as the B flat major scale. And it's the same as any of the other 6 modes that use those same notes as the C Dorian. So what's going to make a Dorian scale, or the chords from Dorian, which are the same as the chords from the 6 other modes that use those same chords, sound different? Which one could it be? Turns out that sixth, that natural sixth, in this case in the C Dorian of the A, the main chord C minor, and the other major and minor triads in the Dorian that have that A in it, that gives the Dorian that characteristic sound. Otherwise, it will just sound, it could be any one of the other modes. So out of this, intellectually, theoretically, C major are all natural notes. C Aeolian, natural minor, flat third, flat 6, flat 7. It's like trying to remember a phone number now. And a name, and I wouldn't worry about the steps between them or trying to remember scales like that, because we don't really get that visual like we do on a piano, on the ukulele, because we can move both horizontally playing single notes and vertically, so that now we can play the same note on different strings. So that really messes up the equation compared to piano, where their note location is they have one place to play that note. They cannot play, you cannot play middle C anywhere else on the piano. On the ukulele, middle C, well, high G you can only play it one place. Low G you can play it on string 4. Octave C. On a high G you can play that C on every string of your ukulele. The high C on the piano, which is like C5, the MIDI number, if you wanted to use that, you could play that in one spot only. Now you can play it with any one of your fingers, but so here we can play the high C on a high G here, fret 8 on string 2, fret 12 on string 3 because that's the octave. And for the high G, you can play it on fret 5, string 4. 4 different places, that exact same notes, let alone use any one of your fingers. Right, so Dorian, natural 6 is the characteristic scale step of Dorian, and that determines the primary chords. All right, Aeolian has a characteristic scale step 2, it's the 3rd. But that's where you sort of write this stuff down and read it and look at it over time, or play a chord progression. Right, like if I jump back to that Aeolian Nights, that's the same chords. They'll show up in the key of E flat. That's the E flat major chords and stuff, right? But this one doesn't have any resolution ending chord, but this is actually Aeolian because it's using the primary chords. So this won't sound like a... there's some rock songs that use Aeolian. That's a good place for YouTube. They have people that have done like rock songs that use these modes or that modes. All right. So now we hit 5 of the 6 essential scales. All right. So we did the major scale. That's your foundation. If all else fails and you can't remember other things from this, you can always go back to your major scale and derive information from it. Mixolydian is the major scale with the flat 7. All right. That's a bluesy sound. That's good for the blues too. If somebody's playing like a C blues, you can use a C blues scale, which is the next one we're going to do, the last of the 6. All right. Lost the ear where you can hear me. Excuse me. I want to hear how it sounds though in my ear. In my ear. It's like a Metro Media. Right. So Dorian, natural 6 from your Aeolian. So it comes down to the Ionian and the Aeolian is your 2 bass scales that you can remember everything from. Now blues. So the blues scale, let's play that. That's a flat 3rd. Oh, I see an error in my, it's always typos I catch. I have to fix them. This is cool here. So and I showed the C blues, the minor pentatonic. C, E flat, F, G, B flat, C is the minor pentatonic. The scale I actually showed the, let me see, passing tone. What makes the blues is the C, E flat, F, G, and then put in between it F sharp or G flat. Add some notes. There's my error. Look, spot the error. Flat 3rd. That's supposed to be sharp 4 or flat 5. Another error. Let's fix them. That's being your own editor. Not the dock is pay. All right. We'll fix that. Now, I actually start with the blues scale for most people when you want to learn improvisation, if you're doing the blues, right? Or the major pentatonic, if you want to just learn improvisation generally and be able to apply it to songs that aren't the blues and even use it with the blues. Because there's more melodies written with using the pentatonic, major pentatonic scale than any other scale. All right. So you get the sound, the MIDI sounds right here. You start to recognize the sound. And then put that passing tone in. Now where can you put that passing tone? Anywhere you want. You get that need where you feel and hear where you can't really linger long on it. You have to resolve it. Right, it can be used on the way to any one of the other notes. So it's not always just used between in this case here, the fourth and the fifth. It can be used anywhere. So 6 essential scales. Now I would actually, here's a video lesson on all this. I did a workshop back in the first month or two of the pandemic of 2020, me and Kelly, when we were locked down as everybody else in their homes. We did a video on this. So there is another rambling video of, oops, oh, look at that, what's that? Yeah, the link is off. I get to catch things. It is sessions we have every Thursday, or a lot of it for, I can catch and edit my material. That's funny. All right, so I would master these in the open position. It's funny, we just did the blues playing it, so I was looking at the major scale and I wanted to do that, but my ear still had that blues in my ear. So I even tell my students, this is what happens, like even when you're reading music and stuff like that, reading chord charts, even lyrics of chords and stuff of songs, is that you want to look ahead a little bit, but you can look ahead, but you can't play ahead. And our ear does retain sounds that they've just previously heard. So sometimes you got to clear the air of music. And now it's fresh and my ear has no idea what. I wanted to play major, but it came out Mixolydian. Right? So you have to do that. When it's only one note difference, if your finger plays a note you didn't expect, it was that brief point there where it dropped the bits. It didn't get the message on the network of your brain and ear to your hands. All right. So for initial soloing success, the blues and the pentatonic are very good because they do take out that half step sound that we covered in here, where you do hear that dissonance. And if it did a descending, it's not so bad. On the B's, not so bad. The F really wants to go to E. In fact, when we do the chords, maybe next week we're running low here in time. We'll go over the chords for these scales. Because from scales, everything comes from scales, the collection of notes. Melodies, the chords, the harmony, all right? And we use the scales to improvise, to write melodies, all right? So in no particular order. Then there is a really couple good lessons online that I have on the Ionian major scale. One is called Navigating the Major Scale. So you would take this here, major scale, and then start on string 3. And be able to navigate up the neck, right? Be able to start on any finger, then it goes to finger 2, finger 3. And it's all about reuse. I just reused the same fingering. I reused this fingering. You can even think it like that. Say, okay, I'm going to take D, C, D, E, F. How many ways can I play D, E, F? Right? How many ways can I go between D, E, F? D, E, F, 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 D, E, do E, F, G. All right? You're training your fingers to get that sound. That's the first part of the scale, right? If I play just the first 3 notes. All right, we're training our fingers to follow our ears, and that's where all the darn work is. It's pretty challenging. All right? Now, if you're a member of the site, you can actually download the Quick Start Scale Fingerings for Ukulele. That gives you one fingering solution for each, but I would do this. I would go to the lessons and go to, if you're doing a low G, it doesn't really matter. I would start on any one of these. All the low G does is add the string 4 to everything that was in the lesson without the low G. So this is navigating the major scale. And what you'll see is, ultimately you'll see a lot of overuse, overlap, and you end up with 5 different regions on the instrument where you can play all the notes of a scale, 7-note scale especially, or pentatonic scales, 5-note scales, using 4 fingers. Sometimes it's all in a 4-fret span, and other times there's 1 note outside of that 4-fret, 4-finger position where you had to get. But there's only 5 regions, areas, positions on the ukulele for playing your scales. But then there is navigating between them, and what this lesson does is explore that using every finger on string 3. All right, this one's, yeah, you had to be a member for this one. Can't give everything away, right? Whew. There's a lot there, huh? Oh man. Remember, fix these errors now. So, man, there's almost 700 lessons up here, so there's a lot up here. A lot of stuff up here. So any questions before we leave, type it in there. I'll answer a couple questions if you have any. If not, I'm going to close it down. And see you next week. But we will go over the chords for the scales, where they come from, how we use them, why are those particular chords used. All right? We base everything off of our major scale, though, so that's a good one there. So this one, this today was actually streaming to 3 different places versus just the YouTube. So I see a lot of people from Facebook on here, so that's pretty good. So I'll probably do the Funky Frets Facebook thing a lot, too. All right, let them collect all this information that they can sell on us, huh? So now I'm sure you'll probably be getting ads on the major scale. Now, a big thing, too, is I'm a super big fan of this program. It is, like, so great that I would sometimes spend a half hour and just do 1 chord. G7 playing, and I'm thinking, okay, G Mixolydian, well, same notes as C major. I can reuse all my major scale fingerings, but the notes are G, B, D, F. Targeting my chord tone. There, I decided I'm just going to go down that line and repeat the high note. Little jazzy, chromatic thing. fanaticism to my playing, and I failed miserably usually. But now that I know my triads really well and the chord tones, and actually can spell the chords quickly in my head and know the notes of the neck, this stuff's getting easy. Finally, after 30 years. A targeted G here. Alright, so that ends another hour of a Thursday morning. I apologize for not refunding the hour. You won't get that time back. So I'm using the triad plus one a lot. Like descending, took a melodic line. Our ear knows what's next. Do a blues here. Mixolydian. Pentatonic. Alright, very good, very good, very good. So thanks everybody for tuning in. I guess I'll keep streaming here. It did show up on YouTube. I think it showed up on the Funky Frets YouTube, I see. I don't know about on my YouTube. I think it did the Funky Frets YouTube. It's like, no, it's mine. It's hard to tell. There you go. All right, so we'll see you. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for some newcomers popping in. Hello, Pete, Robin, Jim. Thank you very much, and anybody else that tuned in. We're out of here. Kill it. So we'll be back next week.